Okay, let's just jump right in. We are going to unpack one of the most, well, just bizarre geopolitical crises in recent memory. This is the story of how the United States found itself in a direct standoff, not with a rival, but with one of its closest NATO allies, Denmark, all over the massive island of Greenland. I mean, just listen to this quote. "One way or the other, we are going to have Greenland." Wow, that's not a suggestion, is it? That is a declaration. And with those very words, what sounded like some absurd real estate proposal, boom, it instantly became a full-blown international crisis that put the entire NATO alliance on high alert. And this, right here, this really gets to the heart of the conflict. On one side, you've got the US position, full ownership is psychologically needed for success, and on the other, you have Greenland and Denmark just saying, look, Greenland is not for sale, you can't buy a people. It's an immovable object, meaning an unstoppable force.
So you gotta ask, how on earth did we get here? How did a diplomatic dispute escalate into something so, well, unthinkable? Because this wasn't just a war of words, not by a long shot. The evidence points to a full-scale pressure campaign that involved covert influence, military posturing, and the very real threat of a transatlantic trade war.
So what was really driving this intense, almost obsessive focus on Greenland? Well, to get that, you've really got to peel back the layers. And it turns out there were two very different motivations pushing American policy forward. Okay, so officially, the story from the White House was all about national security, a critical issue, they said. But when you start digging into the sources, another, much more tangible prize comes into view: Greenland's massive and mostly untouched natural wealth.
Just take a look at this breakdown. It's fascinating. On the left, you have the stated reasons, right? It's all geopolitics, countering Russia and China in the Arctic, building out this Golden Dome missile defense system. But then, look to the right. That seems to be the underlying reason. We're talking vast deposits of rare earth elements, an estimated 31 billion barrels of oil, basically all the stuff you need for modern tech and defense.
And the numbers here, the sheer scale of it all, it's just staggering. I mean, we're talking about some of the world's largest known deposits of rare earth minerals. And you got to remember, these aren't just some fancy rocks. This is the stuff that powers everything: our smartphones, our electric cars, our most advanced weapons. So you can see why controlling that supply would be a huge strategic win for anyone. Okay, so Denmark and Greenland made it crystal clear: no sale. Did the US administration back down? Nope, not at all. In fact, they did the exact opposite. They launched what you can only really call a full-on pressure campaign to try and force a deal. And there's actually a term for this that analysts use: hybrid warfare. It's a strategy where you try to get what you want without, actually starting a war. It's all about blending political pressure, fake news, economic threats, anything to achieve your goal. And the objective here was pretty clear: drive a wedge between Greenland and Denmark and create enough chaos to force them to the table. And this timeline, it just lays it all out. You can see the deliberate escalation. It starts kind of subtly, right? Early 2025, you've got these influence operations. I mean, people were literally seen handing out dollar bills in the capital of Greenland. But then, look how fast it ramps up. Fast forward to January 2026, and the administration is openly threatening military action. Just a month after that, they're threatening to slap tariffs on their own European allies. This was a full-court press against a fellow NATO member. Now, a campaign this aggressive, it was never going to fly under the radar. And the reaction from the people of Greenland, from European allies, and even from inside the United States, it was fast, unified, and it was powerful.
Let's start with Greenland. The people there responded with just total, unified defiance. You had mass protests. You had every single political party issuing a joint statement saying, and I quote, "We do not want to be Americans." The message could not have been clearer: our identity is not for sale.
And really, all that defiance, all that frustration, it was all boiled down to this one simple, powerful message you saw on signs all over the island: stop threatening us. And then, something happened that was, well, pretty much unprecedented. It was called Operation Arctic Endurance. Think about this. For one of the first times ever, a whole bunch of NATO allies sent their militaries not to back up the US, but to shield another member from the US. It was a stunning, absolutely stunning show of solidarity. And you have to understand just how high the stakes were. This wasn't some minor disagreement. European leaders saw this as an existential threat to the whole alliance. The EU's defense commissioner said it flat out: an American invasion of Greenland? It would be the end of NATO, period. So, did the US de-escalate? Nope. They hit back with economic force. The message to their European allies was basically, if you send your military to support Denmark, we're going to hit your economies with huge tariffs. And just like that, a security crisis morphed into a major trade war.
So you have all this high-stakes drama on the world stage. But back home in the US, the public was in a completely different place. This poll from YouGov is just wild. An overwhelming 92% of Americans were against an invasion. That is a massive disconnect between the administration's policy and what the people actually wanted.
Which brings us to the real heart of the matter. What was truly at stake here? Because this crisis was about so much more than just one island in the Arctic. It was about the stability of the entire international system.
And the potential consequences, it's like a domino effect. First, you risk fracturing NATO, the bedrock of Western defense for decades. That then sparks a really damaging transatlantic trade war. And all this fighting among allies, it just creates a huge opening for geopolitical rivals to step in. It weakens the entire West.
And here's the ultimate irony. As the EU's top diplomat pointed out, the only ones who really benefit from all this division are the very rivals, China and Russia, that the whole policy was supposedly meant to counter in the first place. I mean, they must have been loving it.
And so it all comes down to this one final chilling question. When an ally becomes an adversary, who really wins? It's a question that, for a very tense period, left the future of the most successful alliance in history just hanging in the balance.